Welcome back. You're watching Clear Cut, coming to you live from New York City's Times Square. The White House has ended funding for UNRWA, the agency that provides aid to Palestinian refugees. In a statement, the State Department said the United States will not make additional contributions to UNRWA. The United States is no longer willing to shoulder the very disproportionate share of burden of UNRWA's costs. And the statement continues, the United States will no longer commit further funding to this irredeemably flawed operation. We are very mindful of and deeply concerned regarding the impact upon innocent Palestinians, especially school children, of the failure of UNRWA and key members of the regional and international donor community, and reform and reset the UNRWA way of doing business. The Trump administration has been hinting this move could be coming. Senior Middle East correspondent Mohammed Al-Qasim has more details.
Is U.S. President Donald Trump trying to do away with the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA? That's the UN arm that deals exclusively with Palestinian refugees who were expelled or fled from their villages in 1948 in what is now Israel. Just last week, top U.S. diplomats at the UN, Nikki Haley, said Palestinians are taking advantage of UNRWA.
When you look at UNRWA, there's a couple of issues there. First of all, you're looking at the fact that, yes, there's an endless number of refugees that continue to get assistance. But more importantly, the Palestinians continue to bash America.
These statements have infuriated the Palestinian Authority. Palestinians accuse the U.S. of siding with Israel and trying to eliminate the refugee issue, just like President Trump did with the issue of Jerusalem. PLO representative to Washington, Hussam Zumlot, responded to the news in a statement that read, by endorsing the most extreme Israeli narrative on all issues, including the rights of more than 5 million Palestinian refugees, the U.S. administration has lost its status as peacemaker and is damaging not only an already volatile situation, but the prospects for future peace in the Middle East. The U.S. is UNRWA's biggest financial contributor. Its decision to cut off aid will affect at least 5 million people scattered in refugee camps throughout the Middle East. UNRWA wants to see a fair and just treatment for the millions of Palestinian refugees.
We're talking about human beings, and one cannot wish 5.3 million Palestinian refugees away.
Last week, the State Department announced a $200 million reduction in U.S. aid budget for Palestinians. Ramallah says Washington is punishing them for not accepting the so-called deal of the century that Trump wants to offer. Israel disputes the number of Palestinian refugees, claiming that it's greatly inflated. And both Israel and the U.S. see the Palestinian demand for right of return as an obstacle in the way of achieving a peace agreement. The Palestinians are trying to rally the international community to step in and fill the financial void left by the U.S. But Washington's decision could see the focus shift from reforming UNRWA to whether it should be dismantled altogether. Mohammed Al-Qasim, I24NEWS.
And I24NEWS has obtained a statement on the funding cuts from Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. A spokesman for Abbas said, the consecutive American decisions represent a flagrant assault against the Palestinian people and a defiance of UN resolutions. Such a punishment will not succeed to change the fact that the United States no longer has a role in the region and that it is not a part of the solution. For more on the aid cuts, we're joined by Basima Al-Hussein, CEO of Al-Hussein Global Strategies. Basima, great to have you. Ending funding for UNRWA is a very controversial decision by the Trump administration. Do you see it as some sort of punishment for the Palestinians, as Abbas suggests, or is it just part of the very strict Trump administration policy of how to distribute U.S. aid?
I think Trump has been very clear in his policy towards Israel and Palestine that he has a very imbalanced perspective and lacks the understanding of the 4 final status issues, which have been always understood to be negotiated between the Palestinian and Israeli people. 2 of those final status issues he's attempting to determine on his own, and those issues are, 1, Jerusalem as the capital of either Israel or Palestine, 2, the issue of the right of return for Palestinian refugees. 3, the issue of water and water rights. And 4, borders. And so what we see now is the Trump administration very aggressively attempting to claim, or to dictate rather, 2 of those final status issues. And I think that that's going to, again, foment tensions, leave the Palestinian people in even more egregious poverty that they've already been in, and is only going to increase hostility towards the United States. It's very interesting that we heard Ambassador Nikki Haley's remarks to the United Nations saying that the U.S. will not continue to fund UN Relief and Works Agency because Palestinians criticize the United States. First of all, that's a completely blanket statement. Not all Palestinians criticize the United States. Not all people, not children who are receiving school books from UNRWA are standing outside burning flags. Number 2, the second issue is her statement fails to recognize what the Trump administration particularly has done to create such tremendous disdain by the Palestinian people that is absolutely rational. And one of those things was the issue of him recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel last December.
Basima, you also mentioned the right of return issue, and I want to explain it a bit further to our viewers because reportedly it seems that the Trump administration is not only scrapping the funding, but also going against the existence of UNRWA or its definition of who is a Palestinian refugee. Under UNRWA's definition, there are over 5 million Palestinian refugees. That's including those who fled Israel and also their descendants. That's a very unique definition for Palestinian refugees who inherit the right to be considered refugees and hence also inherit the so-called right of return to Israel. What are your thoughts about this idea to change the definition?
So I think that actually changing the definition of a refugee is more significant than the funding cuts because, as you pointed out, while the United States is cutting about $200 million of funding, other countries are able to hopefully step up to the plate and make up for that. This issue of redefining what it means to be a Palestinian refugee will fundamentally alter the rights of any Palestinian, and particularly a Palestinian American, as opposed to a Jewish American's claim to return or, claim citizenship if and when a state of Palestine is established. And that's significant because there are Palestinian Americans in the United States and Jewish Americans.
It might be a game changer.
Yes, it is a game changer.
Really changes. Basima Al-Hussein, thank you for joining us. And still ahead on Clear Cut, ready for a fight. Despite a UN resolution to keep the peace between Israel and Lebanon, both sides say they are armed and ready.